Hello everyone and welcome to the Pleasant Valley Fences Factory Tour. In this video I'm going to go through each of the new factories in the Pleasant Valley Fences map and explain to you how to use them and just exactly what each one does. This first one is the Shell Factory, and this is where all fuel is now created on the map. I already have preset the vehicles with everything we need, so I can get us going right away. There is no other fuel source on the map, so from now on, right off the bat, as soon as you start the Pleasant Valley Fences game, you are going to have to get your corn, your sorghum, and the sugar cane loads into the fuel company. The first grate here is for the corn. This is the sorghum going in. And last, the sugar cane. Okay, we have our 3 products loaded in, and the factory has begun making fuel. We will go over and check out. I'll show you the fuel gauges, and then we'll fast forward some time to get the fuel going. Bring over our first starter tank. These are starter tanks that you start out with. They just hook onto the back of the tractor. They each fill with 1,000 gallons of fuel, so as you make them, we put them in convenient places until there's enough fuel for every farm to have their own starter tank. Jump out here. This little box, green light shows it's creating fuel. Yellow means it has to be emptied. Red means there's nothing going on right now and needs product. You can see we've created 16 fuel, and the products that we put in, the corn, sorghum, and sugarcane, are there. I'm going to speed up time real quick here. Get some extra fuel in there. And all our fuel has been made. That's why the light went back to red. The gauge pipe no longer is above the ground there. The little gray pipe behind there is the gauge on each of the tanks. And this 1,000 liter tank, to fill any of the tanks or vehicles, you just need to go into this little square right here, drive slowly through, and it'll hit the trigger in the middle somewhere. There you go. If we can back up to finish filling it up. There we go. We got 1,000 liters of fuel in this tank that can now be delivered to any of the farms or wherever you need it. This tank can be dropped off, left somewhere, but for now I'm going to show you also the other fuel facilities that are purchasable. I unlocked one already over here. These are for extra storage, and also there are similar storage tanks on the other farms to store fuel. All you need to do is bring it back and you get the dump trigger. We will begin dumping, load that fuel into the tank. One of the bugs with this tank, which I don't know if it was intended, is once you load it, you cannot move the vehicle that loaded it unless you just step out and then step back in, and the vehicle will release and you'll be able to move on your way. Now back to the tank over here. I wanted to show you. You can see it has a gauge on the top that has 1,000 liters. That's what's in the tank. Let's go back to our next vehicle. Our next tank type is this gray tank that needs to be lifted with a forklift. The reason why I wanted to use this one first, this cannot be filled by driving over the triggers to fill it. You have to fill this from one of those tanks like I just have shown you. This has a 3,000 plus capacity, and in order to fill this, you just need to bring it to a fuel tank that has fuel in it, one of your storage tanks. We'll get close enough. come around the side, grab your fuel handle with the B key. Maybe not grab your fuel handle. We must have had a load thing. Oh yeah, it says refill start on the panel. I will show you. I'll turn around here. Just hit the R key to refill the tank and you'll watch the fuel amount go down in this tank. And how many liters it has dispensed goes up. So we'll put part of it in that tank for now. I've just put 338 liters in the tank. You'll see in the bottom right hand corner there's 12% full. This tank now is 12% full and can be delivered to any of the farms when they're filled up for a little bit bigger fuel supply. And that is the second option for bringing fuel around. Then of course we have a couple of tankers. Your blue tanker here, a DDR tanker, can also be driven across the trigger. Just go through slow enough so it doesn't miss the trigger. There we go. We got the other 2,000 gallons into the blue tanker here. One of the interesting things about this blue tanker I will show you also is that if you bring a vehicle to the back of it, it will also fuel up vehicles, so you can drag that fuel source around just like the in-game one. You pull to the back, you should be able to, although it might not get it. It's gonna call me a liar. It's probably, there we go. Somewhere in the back you will get the fill symbol. I just had it. And this doesn't need anything anyway, but you can fill off, there it is, right with that tanker directly. And we also have the yellow tanker that is the in-game tanker that can be used. The one that comes with standard tank. That can be used to fill up fuel. And last but not least, for delivering fuel, once you work your way up to all the tanks, included in the mods pack is the Shell Tandem. You can hook as many of these as your server will allow. Our server, 2 should be sufficient. Each tank holds 50,000. And you do the same thing, just drive it over the trigger and it will fill up. And that is pretty much how the fuel plant operates. Get the fuel distributed back out to your farmers so they can keep growing their crops. We'll move on to the next factory, which is the central fertilizer plant. Central fertilizer takes silage, which I'll bring in right now, and converts silage at a 1-to-1 ratio into chemical fertilizer for your fertilizing machinery. You just drive up the ramp, you'll get a dump trigger, dump the silage in, this is now the only way to create chemical fertilizer on the map is by utilizing this fertilizer factory. Also, the factory takes solid manure. And I'm going to show you, and we pull up here, there's a gauge on the front of this building. Right there, you notice the right one's up a little bit. That is what's in it. The left goes, the output side of that gauge is what has been processed and is ready to use. You can see it's slowly raising up there, but we're going to add some more product to it. So far we have some silage in there. We have a load of solid manure to go in. You can still spread solid manure on your fields if you'd like, but this is the only way to get it for the chemical fertilizer made for the map, is by using one of 3 products. First we have the silage, then we have solid manure, and last but not least, I have 150,000 liters of liquid manure from the Patrick's Manure Hauling Company. Liquid manure can also be turned into your fertilizer. You can see the, oops, you can see me driving really badly, but you can see that gauge on the right side going up even higher. Capacity of this building is 500,000 liters. One interesting thing about this fertilizer truck is it empties instantly. Just hit the dump button, boom, it's in there. Okay, once you have all your products in for fertilizer making, we'll go around the front of the building and take a look at our gauges, and I'm going to fast forward time to get some fertilizer ready. You will start to see the yellow gauge on the left raise up, and the input gauge will stay at its maximum level. The yellow gauge will go all the way up to the top of the input level. Now I'm going to give it a quick boost at a 12,000 times speed to get this rolling. Bring it to the next morning. We will have some fertilizer ready. And let's get past the foggy day here. And the gauge will catch up to where we are. It should be all output by the next morning. Chemical fertilizer can then now be picked up by driving between the fertilizer containers here. See if I can cut this corner. Didn't leave myself much room. Once you're over the top, it will fill up. And there we go. We're filling up with chemical fertilizer. And I think we have enough. I'm going to go up the hill to the pink farm real quick and show you how to offload your fertilizer. It has to be processed through the farm's own building here, own fertilizer container before it can be used. It isn't a long process. Just back it up to the grate and you'll get the dump trigger, and that should hold everything we got here. Grabs a little bit more fertilizer, and while that's filling up, in the placeable objects we included placeable fertilizer tanks, so as you're decorating your farm you need them a little bit closer to where you're working. You can use the placeables. They are a little bit costly, but here's the placeable one. We'll bring it over. They cost 20,000 and they have the same capacity as your starter one. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility, being able to put it where you need it most. And right now I need it right over by where I am, which is this way. I will set one right here on the road just for demonstration purposes. Same thing as the other one, only one little difference. With these that you pay extra for, you will see it pretty much works as a silo. It has a gauge on the top and it does not take time to process through this one. It loads the same way. Just back up till you're over the top of the grate. And empty it in. And it gives this nice placeable one, does give you a nice counter as to how much fertilizer you actually have. And that's pretty much it for the fertilizer plant.